I recently made another custom Super Mario Bros. Wonder level using the Fushigi level editor. It actually took me a while to figure out what this level should be in terms of mechanics. I got a lot of positive reactions to my remodeled enemies in my previous custom level, so my original plan for my new level was for it to feature Jacko Goombas, since they're a perfect fit to replace Bone Goombas. I only realized after I'd already started working on that it's currently impossible to replace particle textures in Super Mario Bros. Wonder. So while I might have been able to make the enemy look good normally, these particles that appear when you'd destroy the pumpkin really did ruin the effect. Okay, so whatever, no Jacko-Goombas then, but by the time I realized this, I had already come up with a selection of mechanics to go alongside the enemy, namely pumpkins and spike balls. I didn't really want to repeat the giant spike ball wonder effect from the original game, so instead I decided to make the Lakitu trio from one of the original game's special levels this level's wonder effect. That made a lot of sense because they throw spike balls, of course, and I like the idea of them destroying a floor made out of pumpkins. The pumpkins in that section couldn't just be floating in midair, so that's why I decided the level should also feature poison water. On top of that, I wanted the level to have a unique enemy type. Since I was already going to use Lakitus for the wonder effect, I figured it would make sense to include a normal Lakitu and also Spinies throughout the entire level. Lastly, I decided these interesting half-pipe objects would work well with both spike balls and Spinies. So with all the mechanics decided upon, it was time to start working on the level. The obvious thing to do with spike balls and pumpkins is have the spike balls destroy the pumpkins, so I wanted that idea to be introduced right at the start of the level. Something which I hadn't messed with before starting work on this level was Super Mario Bros. Wonder's camera area system. So one of the goals I had with this level was to learn how to set up some simple camera tricks. So for example, right at the start here, the player can find a secret in this cave to the left here, which the camera won't allow you to see until you walk into it. This works by giving this section its own camera area, and then sending a signal to that area once you want the camera to actually scroll over there. It's pretty simple, but also different from what I'm used to in other 2D Mario games. Spinies as an enemy really aren't interesting at all, so they were mostly used as a filler mechanic in between the rolling spike ball segments. Choosing which power-up a level should use is sometimes a bit of a puzzle, but for this level the answer was pretty obvious. The elephant suit allows you to knock away the spike balls and also destroy the pumpkin blocks and Spinies, so it's way too powerful in this level. The same also goes for the drill, but the bubble flower is mostly pointless in this level since you can't even use it to defeat the Spinies. The only logical option was the fire flower, which allows you to kill Spinies, but you can't do anything about the spike balls or pumpkin blocks with it. Just like with my previous custom level, I made sure to include as many wonder buds throughout the level as I could fit in. I honestly didn't think too much about this level's purple 10 coins ahead of time, so I sort of randomly decided to make something up using the wonder buds for this first 10 coin. The half-pipe object has a pretty cool interaction with the Spinies, but sadly the spike balls don't really interact with it in any interesting ways. It would have been cool if it made the spike ball shoot up into the air or something like that. The only idea I had for a purple 10 coin before starting work on the level was using one of these bouncy pads to allow the player to redirect a spike ball to destroy a pumpkin block. I liked this idea so much that I decided to make it a part of the level's main route, and then the 10 coin later on could reuse the same idea but slightly more difficult. Like most objects in Wonder, it's possible to spawn spike balls from a pipe, so it made sense to include that in a section, though I made sure not to overuse the pipe generators since they've also been featured in 2 of my previous levels. Although the Fushigi level editor has been updated since I last used it, it's very far from user-friendly, let alone finished. I made sure to save every time before placing a new terrain segment because the editor would crash half the time you do that. There are also a lot of systems that still feel like they were implemented as a placeholder, like how you have to search for every object you want to place by typing out its name each time, instead of allowing you to keep a window open with the object already selected. There is no copy-paste yet, and no multi-selection box. You also can't even move entire terrain segments at once, meaning when I had to move some stuff around, I had to drag around each individual terrain point. Some of a level's more obscure systems, like rails or global links, seem to be broken or haven't been implemented properly at all. Clearly, none of these issues are annoying enough to make me not want to make levels using this editor at all, but it's also clear that a lot of work is still required before I can recommend making custom Wonder levels to anyone else, really. One addition since I last used the editor actually directly affected the design of this level, since Fushigi now finally properly supports placing semi-solids, which was previously only possible by editing the level as a text file. Although I had the pumpkin destroy puzzle figured out from the start, it took me a while to decide what I wanted to do with the bonus room that would contain the second purple 10 coin. In the end, I decided to make it something pretty simple, a big pile of pumpkins that the player can either destroy themselves or let a Spiny destroy for them. This bonus room is placed in a cave that's off to the side of the main path, since from here I wanted the level to actually be vertical. Implementing the camera for this turned out to be quite a complex task. Super Mario Bros. Wonder's camera will generally always look smooth, but that's because the game actually allows it to go outside of the allocated camera areas under certain circumstances. I had to pull off some weird tricks to make it to where the camera still felt smooth, whilst also preventing the camera from going outside of its bounds in this part where the level switches from horizontal to vertical. I also decided that this would be a good place for the level's checkpoint flag to go, although the second half of the level ended up being much larger than the first. In terms of playtime, the two halves are roughly equal. Previous to the Mario games have featured crates that function similarly to the pumpkins in Super Mario Bros. Wonder. In those older games, if one of those crates would fall on the player, it would crush and kill them. But in Wonder, pumpkins actually get destroyed if they fall on top of the player, which makes the mechanic a bit easier to use as a level designer. So in this section, hitting a Wonder Bud spawns pumpkins up in the air, which then get destroyed by the spike ball, giving the player some coins, with no threat of the pumpkins crushing the player. Something I experimented with throughout this level was resizing certain objects, so the level features a few big spinies and big spike balls. The big spike balls in the original game actually instantly kill the player, so even the biggest spike balls in my level are actually resized versions of the smaller spike balls to make sure that doesn't happen. Making levels for Super Mario Bros. Wonder is a strange experience as someone who is used to making levels for older 2D Mario games, because some objects are way more complex than they've ever been, while other objects are very simple. For example, as it turns out, the Lakitu enemy is very simple to set up in Wonder. The third and final 10 coin was once again something I hadn't really thought much about ahead of time. I ended up deciding to make it to where the player can only get it by stealing Lakitu's cloud. That meant that this section had to function in multiple ways. It both had to be challenging if you did steal Lakitu's cloud and also if you didn't, which is why I encouraged the player to fly down low using some coins. At this point, I realized that having the Wonder Bud spawn spike balls was an interesting enough idea that it could basically serve as the main mechanic of the second half of the level. That also allowed me to naturally transition the level into this downward spike ball chase section that I had actually come up with mostly as a way of getting the level back down to the poison water for the Wonder effect. Still, it made for a good way of progressing the level's mechanics and escalating the difficulty a bit, though it once again took me a while to get the camera to feel right. I am also well aware that it's pretty easy to avoid the big spike ball chase entirely by jumping over it, but I feel like that's actually totally okay. If the player is skilled enough to pull that off, I'm not going to stop them. As usual, the big challenge of designing a Wonder segment is that it usually still has to function as a level section even if you avoid the Wonder effect entirely. However, for this part things were a bit different, since the player would be going through the whole Wonder effect area without the effect active even if they did get the Wonder Flower, because I was planning on having the player run around this area collecting Wonder tokens. The Lakitu Trio Wonder effect itself required some interesting setups, because having the Lakitus appear in the background actually meant I had to put them into a whole different level area, which was then imported into the main level area using a background area locator object. Setting up the Wonder tokens also required some stuff I'd never done before, like linking the tokens to trigger the cutscene of the Wonder Seed appearing once you'd collected them all. The main idea for this whole section was that the spike balls that the Lakitus throw would destroy some of the pumpkins that made up the floor. But of course, I couldn't have them destroying all the pumpkins, or else the player would have no way of even beating the section whatsoever, which is why so many pumpkins ended up being placed under semi-solids to protect them from being destroyed. Another thing I wanted to make sure I got right for this level was placing the mini purple coins. In my previous levels, I never really placed enough of those compared to the original game's levels. As always, I included some stuff that the Wonder effect would enable or disable, like how this section would feature a spike ball generator pipe, but only whilst the Wonder effect wasn't active. The final setup of any level is always a good opportunity to emphasize your central mechanics one last time, so for this level I made a staircase made out of pumpkins that a spike ball would destroy if you weren't fast enough. So at this point you might think the level was finished, but no, I still spent another hour or two adding decoration bits everywhere. Annoyingly, Fushigi doesn't render those in front of the terrain, so it mostly looks like I'm just placing green boxes everywhere. I went through the level multiple times, placing a different type of decoration each time. Easily the most annoying one was the pieces of tall grass, since those had to be placed and resized individually each time. But once that was done, the only thing left to do was adding talking flowers, which I didn't record, so that means that for all intents and purposes, the level is now done, so let's go check it out in-game. Alright, welcome to the level finally in-game now. So if we check over to the left here, you can see that secret area that I've talked about. And there's even a hidden one up there. That's a daisy block, because why not? I always kind of just randomly pick the character that those invisible blocks should be, because it doesn't really matter, I don't think, for the most part. Then, yeah, here I just have some Spinies, and this could be considered enemy spam, I don't know. You just kind of have to, like, introduce that enemy type, of course, and we don't want to combine them with the spike balls right away, because that would be a bit, like, quick to immediately combine so many different mechanics at the start. Then we also have the spike balls with the half pipes, which, like I've talked about as well, those don't really do anything crazy together, but at least the spike balls do kill the Spinies, like, right there, so that's nice. And, yeah, here's already the first 10 coin, which, I mean, it's fine. It definitely reminds me a lot of some of the other more lazy 10 coins I've made in some of my other Wonder levels as well. You're just gonna have, like, one of these random, like, Wonder Bud 10 coins in every level, I feel like. Then here's the amazing puzzle, and as you can see, I can kind of, like, mess it up as well, but it's actually very easy to hit the spot there, as the talking flower also says, and I'm very glad that I found that voice line for the talking flower there. In general, I had a lot of fun with the voice lines, adding those to this level, even though I didn't record it. Then here, a pretty obvious section, just have the spike balls kind of running around from the pipe generator. And then, yeah, Spinies have a cool interaction with the half pipes, which I don't really end up using much throughout the rest of the level, but that's fine. At least we use it to get that little secret pumpkin there, I suppose. And also another hidden block there, because why not? And in fact, yeah, throughout most of the other, throughout most of the rest of the level, I didn't end up using those upside down Spinies all that much. That break block there actually gives you a mushroom if you're small, so that's the thing, I suppose. That's not just completely random, that break block there. And yeah, here's the second purple coin already. It's not a crazy section, honestly. I suppose this is like the most we ever do with the upside down Spiny is this section here. And you can also obviously just destroy all these pumpkins yourself, but using the Spiny is a maybe slightly more efficient way, especially if you don't take damage like I just did. Getting up this section here can actually be relatively tricky, but I mean, I think that's fine, because it's kind of like the final challenge of the level before the midway here. I have considered adding a second midway to this level, maybe like moving this first midway a little bit earlier and then adding another one before the spike ball chase section later on. But, I mean, I haven't done that yet. I might end up doing that if this level ever ends up being, like, added into a level pack or a mod or something like that. I don't know. This section here kind of had to have like no gaps in the terrain, so it's just a big blob of land. But that does make it a little bit boring, but at least it is also the part where the Lakitu gets introduced, so I suppose that's fine. Yeah, the Lakitu itself, like I've talked about, is very easy to set up, and I'm very happy with how like his integration into the level actually worked out. And also here's something very cool I managed to, there we go, I managed to get to work, is that the talking flower actually reacts to you destroying, that might be a bit of a harsh word, defeating, quote-unquote, the Lakitu, and that's very cool, and that allows you to get the third 10 coin already. So I suppose the third 10 coin really is very early on in the level compared to, like, we're nowhere near the end of the level yet, but I suppose that's fine, because we do have some other exciting stuff coming up, like this section here, which, yeah, you can probably easily jump over the spike ball there. You can also, like, sort of maybe try to avoid that Wonder Bud entirely. I don't know if that's possible. But either way, I'm fine with that kind of stuff, because I don't mind people cheesing my levels, and honestly, like, 99% of the people who might end up playing this level wouldn't do that, I feel like. So in that way, I think it's a fine little compromise, I suppose. And then here we're already at the section that's going to turn into the Wonder section. We just have a few more simple little mechanic setups, like this spike ball thing here, which is just kind of there to also give the level a bit of a climax, even if you don't end up getting the Wonder Flower here. And I do like that trick with the spawning the 2 spike balls there to destroy the pumpkin like that. I suppose it's kind of an inverse of the way we get the third 10 coin. But yeah, here's the crazy section. Let's hope I don't die here, because this part is actually ridiculously difficult. I should probably maybe if I do end up including this level in a mod, I might like try and adjust the configuration for the Lakitu trio to make them not throw spike balls quite as much, because it can be, oh my god, it can be very difficult, this section, I think. Especially because you have to run around the whole section multiple times, basically, to collect all of these wonder tokens. Also, here's definitely the best. I was going to talk about the talking flower there. Let's see if he. Oh, you have to wait here a second. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that talking flower is a lot of fun, I think. And with that, we can grab this Wonder Seed, and I liked how I there have the background rocks kind of indicating where the Wonder Seed is going to spawn ahead of time. That's also something that the original game also sort of does occasionally, and I think that's pretty nice. But yeah, here's just like kind of the end of the level. This was kind of like an obligatory section, just because like we had to have this part here, because I wanted the Wonder Seed to be in the middle of the other section. So you kind of end up playing through the whole section like in multiple ways if you get the Wonder Flower. But yeah, with that, the level is completely done, and we've played through the whole thing. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and maybe check out the Wonderland Discord server linked in the description. But thank you guys so much for watching. See you later, and bye-bye!